thought that was an excellent panel. Am I on? Yeah, it didn't look like it. All right, there we go. The little red light should tell me something, right? Hey, appreciate the panelists letting us cut this a little bit short. Our event sponsor is here and is on a tight schedule. And most importantly, he's my senator, so I want to keep him really happy. All right, so Senator Mike Crapo has represented the great state of Idaho since 1999 in the Senate. Prior to that, served as a representative in the U.S. House from 93 to 1999. I will note that he and my oldest son went to the same high school. And the senator serves on a wide variety of committees here in the Senate. He's the chief deputy Republican whip, serves on the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, Environment and Public Works, Finance and Indian Affairs, and of course his state and his part of the state are home to the Idaho National Laboratory. So he's got a particular interest in nuclear issues. And with that, I'll welcome Senator Mike Crapo.
Thank you, John. I wish that your son and I had gone to the same high school at the same time. At least from the looks of your age and mine, I think that would probably work well for me. So first of all, thank you all very much for the invitation to be here, and thank you, Secretary Moniz, for inviting me to speak at this timely summit focusing on our existing fleet of nuclear power plants and the economics that are driving the industry. For those of you who don't know me as well, I was elected to Congress in 1992 to the House, and then in 1998 to the Senate. So I have lived through some serious downturns in terms of support of nuclear energy, and then some upturns, and the efforts that are underway today, particularly here in this conference, and by many of you, are deeply appreciated. I will probably say this again in my prepared remarks, but I was born and raised in Idaho Falls, which is where the Idaho National Laboratory is. And I have been a proponent of nuclear power forever. And so I'm really glad to be able to be here with you. Now let me just get into my prepared remarks. I'm at a little disadvantage because I don't know what you've really talked about all day. So I hope that my remarks are even in the same ballpark. But what I'm going to talk about a little bit, and I'll try not to drag on too long, is both the need to deal with the market dynamics and the demand for nuclear power, and the regulatory climate that we have in the United States today that I think could be made much more efficient and much more effective. So with that, let me also say I appreciate the hard work and the dedicated service of the people of the Department of Energy, all of our national laboratories, and all of you in the private sector. I assume there's some folks from every one of those categories here in the audience, for what you do to help promote and strengthen this important part. Every time I give a speech anywhere on energy, I say, first of all, the United States needs a very strong national energy policy, which I don't think we've yet arrived at. And secondly, I say that nuclear energy needs to be a key part of our national energy policy. And we need to continue striving to get there. I can't talk about nuclear energy without mentioning the great Idaho National Laboratory and all of its employees. As I said earlier, I was born there, and I'm so proud of our community's role in the historic development of atomic energy. You probably all know that's where the first light bulb was lit, right? Well, there's a desert there, and I actually drive through that desert to go to any other part of Idaho from Idaho Falls. And I've driven by that facility and gone in many times to see. It's a museum now, basically. and I'm just so proud of the people from the lab. The lab has been the home of over 50 reactors of varying technologies and has led the way in creating accident-tolerant fuels and other materials that push science forward. Today, the Idaho National Lab is a home to a vibrant, creative, and dedicated workforce of over 4,000 Idahoans. The lab and its employees work tirelessly to advance research in nuclear energy, increasing the value proposition of nuclear through their efforts. Their efforts are critical at a time when the current fleet of nuclear reactors faces a number of challenges. Now, I'm sorry for the advertisement for Idaho. I know there's a lot of other folks in a lot of other parts of the country and the economy who are also equal players in this important thing, but I couldn't come here and not give a shout out to our Idaho National Laboratory. The focus of this summit is, as I understand it, to examine what the various stakeholders and entities can do to improve the economics of the existing fleet of reactors. That begs the question to me, why is it important to sustain the current fleet? Nuclear energy has been and will continue to be a critical and clean component of our baseload electricity needs. And perhaps a more pressing question is, can we afford to lose the current fleet? According to the Nuclear Energy Institute, the United States is at the risk of losing nearly 1/5 of its 99 nuclear energy facilities within the next few years due to the possibility of premature plant retirements. 8 reactors have closed recently or are scheduled to close in 7 states due to market conditions that made them economically uncompetitive. These closures have had and will continue to have devastating impacts on their local economies and to the energy markets in which they operate. NEI states that each nuclear power plant employs between 400 and 700 highly skilled workers, typically has a payroll of about $40 million, and contributes hundreds of millions of dollars to the local economy. The nuclear reactors in the United States generate substantial economic value in electricity sales, $40 to $50 billion each year, with over 100,000 workers across the United States contributing to the production. Nuclear energy is good for jobs, it's good for the economy, and it's a great source of base load clean energy, not to mention the environmental benefits that we are now seeing proven increasingly as we debate other policy issues relating to our environment. We must preserve and enable the current fleet, strengthen the role nuclear plays in our energy portfolio, and continue to be a global leader in nuclear. All of these things, especially the first, require improving the economics of nuclear energy. We are not maintaining our current fleet or creating new reactors in the United States just for United States needs. We need to maintain our current reactor fleet and bring new reactors to market in order to generate more power to meet global energy demand. According to the U.S. Energy Information Agency, electricity generation from nuclear power worldwide increases from 2.3 trillion kilowatt hours in 2012 to 3.1 trillion kilowatts in 2020 and to 4.5 trillion kilowatts in 2040 as concerns about energy security and greenhouse gas emissions support the development of new nuclear generating capacity globally. The report continues, due to the excellent operating record of the existing fleet worldwide, the world average capacity utilization rates for nuclear power plants have continued to rise over time, from about 68% in 1980 to about 80% in 2012, and they could continue to improve in many regions. This means the world is adding more nuclear generation more rapidly than the United States, and operators around the world are deriving more energy from plants from more efficient fuel than ever used before. Why is this important? The U.S. EIA projects total world consumption of marketed energy will see a 48% increase from 2012 to 2040. A nearly 50% increase in energy consumption cannot be met by renewables alone. There are millions of people who still live in poverty and lack access to electricity. The International Energy Agency has said that more than 1.3 billion people have no electricity at all, and billions have inadequate access to power. Studies have shown that there is a positive correlation between the access to electricity and increasing standards of living. The most dramatic of these analyses has shown the rapid growth of city infrastructure around the world to accommodate the influx of population migration from rural areas. Cities need electricity for all of the services that they provide. Medical, safety, learning, water, and the list goes on. Baseload electricity generation offered by nuclear energy can be there to help around the world if we continue our work here. And of course, it will only benefit us here. There is clearly a strong global and strong domestic demand for nuclear power. Demand is powerful. As you all know, it's a fundamental concept in economics. Several factors should be driving demand for nuclear in the current marketplace. A desire for baseload, supporting reliable and clean energy. A demand for an alternative energy source for large industrial processes. A need to generate more power to meet global energy demand. And a desire to maintain American leadership in the nuclear industry. This is not a market free of intervention. So this demand is not enough to overcome the challenges that are leading some plants to shut down. One of the challenges against the demand for nuclear energy is bad public policy and, in my opinion, over-regulation. The government nearly regulated the industry out of business in the 1970s and 1980s, and I referred earlier to the 1990s, the early 1990s, when we saw a severe downturn simply because of government policy decisions. As government leaders, we need to examine the impact that policies that we develop here have on market conditions, and we need to focus on it again today. That's why I'm so glad to see this conference happening. I agree with Jack Spencer of the Heritage Foundation that, quote, the government's role should be to ensure safety and to allow the industry, just like any other, to compete and flourish in open markets. The federal government has had such a heavy hand in negatively affecting market conditions for nuclear energy that it must intervene more than usual to right-size the market. The congressional leaders, and I point this finger right here, have an additional role of ensuring the government regulator of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission can regulate the safety and security of the industry without creating market barriers and disincentives to investment. These changes in policy and regulatory involvement start here in Congress and work all the way through our regulatory agencies. This April, Senators Inhofe, Booker, and Whitehouse, and I hope you notice that that's 2 Republicans, and counting myself, and 2 Democrats, introduced the Nuclear Energy Innovation and Modernization Act, or what we're calling NEMA. Among other things, this measure modernizes the NRC's fee and budget structure to improve its transparency and accountability. This measure was overwhelmingly approved by the Senate Committee on the Environment and Public Works in a 17-3 vote yesterday. It is widely recognized that the opacity of the NRC's budget serves as a marketplace disincentive. NEMA will help to alleviate the challenges caused by the fee and budget structure through its reforms. In its letter of support for the legislation, Exelon says that even though the NRC has undertaken efforts to reduce its budget under Project AIM, our fees do not adequately reflect the agency's decreased workload due to the early retirement of several units over the past years. Exelon goes on to state in their comments with regard to our legislation that we've got to update, we've got to understand how the market is working as we apply the regulatory fee structures and the regulatory requirements. Otherwise, we will continue to see burdens and roadblocks put into place of the development and the construction and then finally the implementation and utilization of nuclear power facilities. This is a clear example of how the current NRC fee and budget structure serves as a marketplace barrier. Congressional oversight and NEMA are necessary to undo the damage of opaque, unaccountable policies and processes. NEMA is an example of the important role of congressional oversight in removing market barriers to improve the economics of the current nuclear fleet. It's equally important to foster public-private partnerships. The Idaho National Laboratory is home to one such partnership. many more actually, but the Light Water Reactor Sustainability Program. As you heard from Dr. Peters this morning, this program is developing the scientific basis to extend existing nuclear power plant operating life and ensure long-term reliability, productivity, safety, and security. The LWRS program focuses research on material aging issues. Activities in this area have been expanded to address lessons learned from the Fukushima accident, particularly in understanding and managing accident-tolerant fuel and accident events. This program influences the economics of the current fleet by addressing important technical issues that may affect regulation and operating license extensions. U.S. nuclear operations have improved substantially in terms of reliability and management efficiency. Improved reliability has resulted in increases in production, so that during the last 2 decades, the impact of increased nuclear production from the highly reliable nuclear facilities has been the equivalent of adding nearly 30 large 1,000-megawatt power plants to the national power grid. Keeping these generating assets online beyond 60 years has been a focus at INL, and I know of many of the rest of you as well. Another good example of public-private partnerships is the effort to engage with the Department of Energy on 3 initiatives. Again, I'm focusing a lot on what I see happening at the INL, but I know that there's a tremendous amount of overlap and additional activity across the country. These initiatives support our current fleet. I'm referring to establishing the Light Water Reactor Research, Development, and Deployment Working Group, and addressing small modular reactor needs through the Consortium for Advanced Simulation of Light Water Reactors, and designing a modernized control room. Through public-private partnerships, congressional oversight, and efforts such as NEMA, we can work together to change the marketplace conditions that will improve the economics facing our current fleet of reactors. And frankly, something that I haven't mentioned, I don't know if you've gotten into because it's not the topic I don't think of today, but we have a whole future of new and advanced reactors and technology to be engaged in. We've got to make sure we maintain our base load and our current fleet. And such efforts will require hard work and bipartisan persistence. I can tell you that we do have bipartisanship in Congress in support of nuclear. I won't go into personalities or names, but I've had conversations today with colleagues that are very different about nuclear power than I had with those same colleagues 10 years ago. We are building broad bipartisan support for nuclear energy in Congress. We need your continued support to do that and to work on the policies and to get the regulatory environment right, and then to go even further into what I'm sure you spent most of your time talking about here today in terms of doing all of the detail work that's necessary to develop and strengthen our current fleet and move us toward our advanced future technologies. I look forward to working with the industry, with the labs, with the Department of Energy, with the NRC, and my congressional colleagues to improve the economics of the current fleet and to build our future. Ensuring the success and longevity of the current fleet of reactors pays dividends as we work to foster the advanced technology that we are all seeing be developed for our future. Again, I want to thank you all for having me here today. It's exciting for me to come to a room here in one of the Senate office buildings and see it filled with people who I think mostly, or to a person, support nuclear power. And I applaud the work and involvement that you all have in your own way to help us build this future for this critical part of America's future. Thank you.